number 11 BYU at Iowa State, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. The storyline to know is, can BYU continue proving the doubters wrong? And hand up, I have been one of those doubters this year. We have plenty of comments, Dalton, on all of the BYU videos that we do, making fun of me, because I've literally, in every, BYU preview we've done, picked against BYU this year. And obviously, since they're undefeated so far, I've been wrong every single time this year, too. Plenty of people doubted this program going into the year. In the summer, Jake Retzlaff, of course, their starting quarterback, left the program, and many people were wondering whether or not BYU can reach the magical highs that they had in the 2024 season, where they went 11-2. They finished number 13 in the final AP poll. After all, they were starting a true freshman quarterback in Bear Bachmeier, who only enrolled at BYU in May after transferring in from Stanford. So because of that, the Cougars had a preseason win total of only 6.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. BYU has already surpassed their preseason win total with a perfect 7-0 record this year. They're one of 6 remaining undefeated teams in the country. They most recently took down number 23 Utah in the Holy War, a game where Utah was favored by 3.5 points. And BYU, even though they're 7-0, playing an unranked team this week, BYU is still underdogs. Iowa State is favored by 2.5 points over the Cougars this Saturday. Iowa State is coming off their first 2 losses of the season.
Yeah, I think much like the magic of last year with BYU, it's come from just gritty team football, good defense, making plays at the right time, and winning close games, right? A lot of times the books are waiting for regression. When are they going to lose one of these close games? 3 of their 4 conference wins have been by 6 points or less, right? So you talk about they were behind against Colorado. They were behind against Arizona. They were behind late against Utah and then took the game over in the second half. So I think that's kind of one thing the books might be waiting for. Plus, Iowa State is not an easy place to go in and play. They've only lost 1 home game since the start of last season. So Ames is not an easy place to go into. Iowa State is going to be absolutely desperate because on their end of things, they lose this game, their season's pretty much over with 3 conference losses in a row here especially. I think Iowa State's going to come out and play desperate. BYU wants to stay in the driver's seat. Them and Cincinnati tied for first place in the Big 12 right now, so that's obviously a big deal. They want to stay on that inside track. And BYU, look, doesn't get easier. They get a bye week after this game, and then they go to Texas Tech, who I know they just lost, but they're still really darn good. That's going to be a challenge. So this would be a huge win for both teams. Iowa State for the sake of survival, BYU for the sake of keeping the momentum going.
Definitely. By the way, for anyone wondering, BYU, which was a part of our upset parlay of the week, I just added in South Carolina. It's now $10 wins $209,000. There we go.
Okay.
Now we're swinging for the fences now.
All right. Now
more singles and doubles. We're swinging for the fences again this week.
I'm a little worried about that South Carolina
BYU is part of it, though. BYU is a part of that quote-unquote upset parlay, even though they're the number 11 team in the country right now. Dalton, you actually have that BYU offense led by Bear Bachmeier, but really led by the outstanding rushing attack the Cougars have had this year.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is that there's so much spotlight in so many different directions, right? Kalani Sitake, the coach, Bear Bachmeier, the true freshman, 7-0 quarterback. The defense has been outstanding, but to me, this offense and everything, the domino effect that comes after that with Bachmeier and the play-action passing, with Chase Roberts on the outside, everything else that goes on, it starts with one guy, and that's L.J. Martin back there at tailback. You're talking about 773 rushing yards, 4th most in the country, 540 yards after contact, most in the country, 81.8 rushing grade, 34 missed tackles, 23 explosive. He's the engine of this offense. He is step 1 in this offense. It's so often that a star running back is, but he truly does set everything else up. The one weakness for this BYU team is when they have to just drop back in obvious pass and throw the football. If they can get Martin going and they get the play action going, then you're talking about a much more dangerous offense like we saw with such an efficient play action attack against Utah last week. Now, the other factor in this that could very much play in Martin's favor, okay? BYU's 5th in the nation in run blocking grade right now. This offensive line is a lot better than it was last year. Last year, a solid unit that kind of petered out in the second half. Really dangerous run blocking unit, big time offensive line they have in front of LJ Martin. And I'll be honest with you, I knew they were struggling lately. I didn't think it had gotten to this point. Iowa State right now has the 4th lowest run defense grade as a team in the country. And we were at the game. We saw them struggle with Cincinnati, and that's a great run game we're going to talk about later in this show. But Iowa State, especially up front on that defensive line, it's really fallen apart. Let's put some context on that real quick. Dominique Orange, the star nose tackle, right, on their defensive line. He's their highest graded defensive lineman in run defense, which makes sense, right? That makes sense. He's their best player up front. He's great over the center, all of that. That highest grade among their defensive linemen in run defense, that's a 62.2. He's the best one. It's been too much now, and I can appreciate second-level defenders, linebackers, DBs contributing big time in run defense. We know this. But we saw this early in the game against Cincinnati, that dominant first half especially, where Iowa State's defensive line was nowhere to be found. And if that's the case in this game again, and you're relying constantly on those second-level defenders to come up and make stops, and you have to commit all those bodies up front, that's when dangerous things start to happen, because you got big people on the offensive side for BYU hitting little people on the Iowa State side, and that wears you down. That wears those athletes down over the course of the game. And then we saw eventually, late in the game against Cincinnati, what happened? Get in that pistol, show you outside zone, play action, deep post over the top, ball game over. That's the exact type of sequencing, the same as Cincinnati did to Iowa State, that BYU is going to be looking to use. And in the trenches and with LJ Martin, sure looks like they have an advantage.
Yeah, I have the Iowa State offense in this one. I'm looking at Rocco Becht and whether or not he can make tight window throws in this game against BYU's man coverage. BYU's secondary has been really outstanding this year, and really their linebackers, I would say, too, in their coverage unit, because BYU is 16th in the country in coverage grade this year with a 91 coverage grade as a team, and they've done so while running man coverage at the top 25 rate in the country at about 34% this season. Rocco Becht, the Iowa State quarterback, has been very solid to start his redshirt junior year. Top 30 passing grade in the country at right at an 80. But a majority of his success has come against zone coverage, because he's only 57th in the country against man coverage with a 57.7 passing grade against man coverage. After losing his two star receivers last year in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both of them drafted by the Houston Texans, he has thrown much more to his tight ends this year. Two of his top three targets are Benjamin Bramer and Gabe Burkle, two tight ends for Iowa State right now. BYU has only given up 123 receiving yards to opposing tight ends this year, the 8th fewest in the entire country. Isaiah Glasker at linebacker, Faletau Satuala at safety have each done a tremendous job of limiting opposing tight ends' production this year. So if they take away Benjamin Bramer and Gabe Burkle in this game, and Rocco Becht has to make tight window throws to his receivers and man coverage, that could be a huge advantage for BYU in this one.
Iowa State runs as much 12 personnel as any team in the country because they lost Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel from last year's team. They've made this a more tight end-centric offense. That means two things when you play against them. You have to stop the run because they have so many options in the run game with Carson Hansen, with Abu Sama, and even with Rocco Becht back there in the backfield. You have to stop the run, and you have to stop those two tight ends. What does that mean is important for BYU? Well, I think it's a lot of their best players on defense. You just mentioned Satuala and Tanner Wall have both been outstanding at safety. I thought Wall made the biggest play of the game last week against Utah with the interception. And then Siale Acera, Jack Kelly, Isaiah Glasker especially, a freak athlete that I think can run the seams with these Iowa State tight ends. So I think that middle part of the coverage unit for BYU is going to be big time, and then the linebackers need to have another good game. I thought they were solid last week. Tough team with the run game that Utah has to defend constantly, but they were good enough. This group of linebackers, I think, is really in the spotlight once again this week against Iowa State.
Yeah. So, Dalton, even though BYU is a perfect 7-0 to start the season, they're still underdogs this week on the road against Iowa State. Are you taking Iowa State to win, or are you taking BYU?
It's going to be a fist fight, I think. You got two pretty good defenses. I know Iowa State, I've been saying, is struggling on the defensive line. Part of that is the structure of their defense and how they run it, too, with those three-man fronts. But I think BYU is very used to playing in these games, right, between last year and this year. And I think the biggest factor in that is getting LJ Martin going, is getting Bear Bachmeier going in the play action. And Bachmeier, to his credit, in big moments over the last few weeks, Colorado down 14, came back, kept us cool. Arizona down 10 late, came back, kept us cool. Last week against Utah, you're down 14-10. You got to find it, right? Kept us cool in as big an environment and that rivalry as you can get. I think there's a lot of this that plays into BYU's hands. It's going to be a close game. It may come down to just a mistake or two on either side, but give me the Cougars 24-20. I think they're going to get a big road win.
I've got bad news for BYU fans right now. I am picking BYU. So I picked against BYU in every game this year.
No, you blew it.
And they are obviously undefeated right now. I'm picking BYU. I'm sure a lot of BYU fans are going to be pissed at me in the comment section for going against them and picking BYU, actually picking for them and picking BYU. But I am taking BYU to win convincingly. I actually think 34-24 was my final score.
Well, you're in.
Wow. I really think someone in the chat put it really well. Who said it? JKH 2180. He said the way Iowa State plays on both ends plays right into BYU's hands. I agree with that. I think BYU's run game is going to dominate in this game with LJ Martin and their offensive line in this one. And I think Rocco Becht to those tight ends is not going to be as fruitful as it's been for Iowa State all year either. The way BYU plays in the middle of their defense with their linebackers and their safeties have been outstanding in the middle of their defense this year. I think on both ends, BYU has an advantage on offense and defense. So I think BYU not only is going to, outright win as a quote-unquote underdog in this game, I think they're going to win by multiple scores in this game. I got BYU 34-24 over Iowa State.
I just think the only two things about that are you just don't see Iowa State getting blown out very often, if at all. I mean, even the Cincinnati game, they got blown out in the first half, and they made a game out of it and only lost by 8. And then in Ames, it's tough. Like I said, they've only lost one home game since the start of last year. So I think just going on the road into that environment, and BYU always finds themselves in these close games also. So I do think it is a fist fight. I actually think both defenses are going to play relatively well, but BYU's physicality does make the difference. I'm with you on that.
I think someone in the chat is a BYU fan said no with a ton of O's when I picked BYU.
Yeah, see what you did.
I'm going to ruin it.
That's honestly, that's me on the NFL show picking the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I can't pick. This week, the Raiders one was obvious. They were beating the Raiders. But most weeks, when I picked it, if I pick the Chiefs, no. If I pick against them, yeah, then they win by 20. That's just how this is going.
Apologies to BYU fans, but I am taking BYU to win this game against Iowa State.